You're listening to episode 210 of the Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast. There typically comes a time in your life where if you've been out of alignment, you get to this space of just feeling the weight of it all. It can be tricky to identify your own cycles, patterns, and limiting beliefs. It can be just as tricky to shift from a mode of self-doubt into a life of abundant confidence. While we can do it alone, it's oftentimes a lot easier with the help of someone else, such as this week's guest. This week's guest is Kathleen Quinton. Kathleen, who goes by Kathy, is a life coach and author. She loves working between strategic intervention as well as mindfulness for her coaching modalities. I think it's pretty fair to say that Kathy and I were on this good vibes flow throughout our conversation. I could have kept talking to Kathy way beyond our allotted time, as she has so much wisdom and light to share. Before I introduce you to Kathy, I've got to remind you about our new podcast series. The Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast is now serving up 3 weekly episodes. You can catch me on Wednesday, Fridays, and now Sundays. Our newest series, Awaken Your Soul Sunday, is a storytelling series that shares life's biggest aha moments in the words and voice of that week's featured storyteller. On this past week's episode, Mac Monroe shared how he went from graduating third to lowest in his graduating class to entering a career in the military and not knowing what to do at all with his life. Of course, he figured it out, but you've got to listen to the story to find out how. After you've listened to today's Life Mastery conversation, listen to the Awaken Your Soul Sunday series. Each episode shows the acronym AYS before the episode name. Now, are you ready to meet this week's guest? You know what to do. Tune in, turn it up, let's go.
You're listening to Master Your Mind, Business, and Life. Conversations with everyday world shifters, truth seekers, and rule breakers. Here's your host, Lauren Smith.
Hi, Kathy. Welcome to the show. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, hi, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited about today.
Me too, because I know that you are a life coach and you're also an author, but I would really just love to learn more about your journey. What led you to becoming a life coach?
That's such a good question. And I've pondered it so many times because it's basically my purpose. And when you finally get to the point, or for me, it was a journey finding my purpose. So when you get to the point that you're talking about your purpose and you find it, you look back and you think, what led you there? Because there's always a path or a road that leads you to, finding your superpowers, if you will, your reason for sharing and, your why, how you want to contribute to the world. So I think when I look back, as young as 11 years old, I was very interested in what made people tick, why we do what we do, and I know that sounds so young, but even at 11, I used to watch people and admire them and admire people that were doing good things and doing them well and how they did it. It just fascinated me. And I always wanted to better myself and find ways to feel really good about myself and maybe share that with other people. So it started quite young.
Yeah, that is quite young. And then did you go ahead, after school and dive into this or?
No. It took, I didn't know. And it's funny when I share some of the things I've done in my life, it's almost like a no-brainer that I became a coach. I actually, my last job, I've been a coach for about 7 years now, and I became certified in mindfulness, and then I became certified in strategic intervention because I love both, going between the modalities of both. I love mindfulness, and I'm very spiritual, and I love strategies, and that's kind of where the taking action takes place. So when I got out of school, I actually was in the hospitality industry for about many, many years. And I also am a mother of 3 adult children and have 6 grandchildren. And I was always trying to help people, trying to, take care of them, trying to help them uplift their lives, and at the same time, of course, I'm studying it. I was fascinated with positive psychology. I've been studying it for years and years and years, well before I became a coach. Of course, that's a sign, right? Right there.
Yeah, of course. Right.
It's a huge sign. And then when my children were playing sports, I was a coach.
Mm.
I was a softball coach. I helped my son's baseball team. I was the room mother. I was the networking kind of queen, trying to make everything melt, try to keep things together. So when I look back, and then to even fast forward, at one point, I had many young people that I managed at one point, and I was always interested in more than just their job and the way they performed. I was always interested in how they felt about themselves. So it just was, and then I was director of sales in an organization, and then I landed quite well and comfortably in development, which is fundraising for nonprofits. That was fun because I was contributing and trying to make an organization better and help it grow. And really, that's what I always wanted to do for people.
Yeah.
I love doing it for organizations. I love to see businesses grow, especially when they have such purpose. And when really, truthfully, that's my path. And it took me a good long time to say, okay, this is what I want to do. Writing's right up there. I love writing, but my writing always has a piece of coaching to it.
I love that you were able to lean into this. And I really love when you said that you're spiritual, but also strategic, because I think that's exactly how I would describe myself, because we can be spiritual all day, but that action piece is critical. It really is. Yep. So I'm curious to know, because I'm sure people listening right now are like, yes, my purpose, right? Like everyone wants to tap into their purpose. And you took the long route around. Yes. And I'm sure that you want to help people streamline this and get there faster.
Absolutely.
How can we do that? How can you really start to understand your purpose and lean into that?
You can lean into clarity. Find out your why and what's driving you. When I work with people, it is one of the first things we do, no matter the agenda they bring, because everyone brings an agenda. They want to find a job. They want to feel better about themselves. They want to improve this. They want to improve that. But it all starts with clarity, right? We have to know what we don't want in life. And that we only stay in there for a little bit, because what we don't want in life gives us knowledge about what we do want in life. And that's where we want to focus and get really clear about. Just getting focused on what you want in life energy flies to it. Yeah. Energy flies to you. It's very hard when someone really gets down and grounded with what they want in life is. It's very hard to stop them from attaining that. So you're talking about someone, how are they going to make the leap, right? The leap to, this is my why. Yes. We work on their strengths. What are their strengths? What are their superpowers? There isn't a person that I've worked with yet that doesn't have amazing strength, and they're not aware of them. They don't celebrate them because their strengths come easy to them, right? So they're not realizing that, wow, I am a leader. Wow, I did do this. I pulled this together. I mean, once we work on their strengths and they get clear about what they want in life, it's a door open to their purpose and their why, what they want to contribute. I'd say, you know how we're always taught to work on our weaknesses?
Right.
And we want to improve our weaknesses? Well, yeah, we do. We want to improve where we might not be so strong. But those strengths we have, if we just keep massaging them and tweaking them and honing them, they just may be the gift we have to share with the world.
That is so fascinating and so true that we kind of overlook the strengths. We always focus on your weakness. And I even remember going into a job interview and they asked like what your weakness was. And I remember at that time, like thinking, oh, I didn't really think about my weakness, like, oh, we're going to focus on this.
And you don't want to stay there. Just like when I work with people about getting knowledge about what they do want in life. We do it with finding out what they don't want. Finding out what you don't want is key to clarity.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense too when you're able to say what you don't want. Do you find that people, when you ask, well, what do you want in life? Do they typically come back with, well, what I don't want is it easier to fall into the don't or that no mentality versus like, this is what I want to attract in abundance?
Well, what it is first off, I understand. I think part of the question you're asking is it easier for people to stay in the negativity?
Yeah.
Yes, because there's that fear, right? And we're trained. I mean, just our being back when we were primitive beings, we had to run from tigers and bears. Oh my, right? And now we don't have to run from that, but we have that innate piece in us that gets into survival mode and can stay in a comfort zone possibly way too long, right? So you don't want to stay, you do want to train yourself to get out of negative thoughts. That's why when I work with people, we don't stay in what they don't want in life. We only use it for knowledge. Then we just burn that piece. We scratch it out if we're putting it on paper. We throw it away. And then we write down and get really clear about what they do want. I don't want to be in a low-paying job. I don't want to not succeed in life. Okay, what do you want instead? I want to make money that will help my family live comfortably and for us to feel secure and to take a vacation a year. Get really specific. And then, okay, what steps? Let's put some action steps together for there. And then when you do it with a person or they do this for themselves, you do it a few times and you do it maybe about mind, body, and spirit. What do I want from my mind? What do I want from my spirit? What do I want from my body? What do I want from my, work life? What do I want for my family life? You get clear. You wouldn't believe the mission statements that comes out of doing this work or the taglines, mantras that people build. I work with people on this and they turn into poets.
Wow.
It's powerful work.
And they're probably even like, where did this come from?
They really are. Where did this be? Because when they get clear about what they want, they get met with belief. Mm-hmm. And when belief comes to them that they can do this, oh my goodness, this is really what I do want. They get laser focused on it, Lauren.
Yeah. Well, and the opposite side of belief then is self-doubt, right? Yeah. And I think that's something that we've all faced at least once in our life, but for many, that self-doubt is an ongoing battle. So how can we begin to conquer self-doubt?
The best way to conquer self-doubt, well, first off, we talked a little bit about mind, body, and spirit. And if I could share a little tip to all of your listeners, it would be if you're so inclined to just give yourself a little step up and a little nudge, every morning, write down 3 things you can do. Number 1, mind. What can I do for my mind today? 2, body. What can I do for my body today? 3, what can I do for my spirit? And then you're already in your motion is going forward in a healthy way. But to get to your real question here about self-doubt is we have, and we've heard all about it now for a long time, we have negative self-talk. I call my negative self-talk gremlins. I give them a name. A lot of people give them a name gremlin, but you can call your negative self-talk whatever you want. You can call it Harry or Sally. But you've been conditioned, we've all been conditioned to have, when we up level our lives, when we get out of our comfort zone, we get met with this feeling, right? And this feeling is fear. We can call it fear, we can call it anxiety, we can call it excitement. We get to name it what we want. But when you do reach for more, get out of your comfort zone, really risk putting yourself out there in the arena, so to speak, your self-doubt, your gremlins come calling, right? Who do you think you are? You're not good enough. You're a fraud, and on, because we all have these gremlins and they are real and they stop people. It's a wall. We run into a wall unless we know how to deal with them.
And that makes a lot of sense I love that you call them gremlins too, because it's like identifying that other part, right? And it's like, that's
Right.
not really me, right? So it's very easy then to kind of separate yourself from that other voice.
Exactly. When you get practiced in this. I can be driving down the street, Lauren, and I'll have this bad thought or a negative thought about myself. And now I'm practiced. I've been working with gremlins and negative self-talk for years now. So I'll say, okay, I don't feel good about myself right now. I'm feeling really crappy. And I'll get a little still and I'll say, well, what's happening? Oh, you're trying to do this and you're doubting yourself. You're afraid. You're feeling like you're not good enough. And I'll literally just say, "Oh, go away. You don't have me today. Stand back. I've got this." And I'll do a little flicking motion with my hand, like I flicked that gremlin away. And
Mm.
then I stand in my truth. I stand grounded, and I don't have to please everyone. I just need to do the best I can, right?
Oh, I
There's no
love that.
perfection, right?
Yes. Yes, and that's so keep noticing that there's no perfection and giving yourself that grace too, to just
Yeah.
kind of check in with yourself and then, hey, notice it and flick it away.
Just flick it away
Be gone.
and be gone, right?
Be gone.
And expect it each time you reach for something more. When you up level your life, I think we invite our gremlins in. And each time we up level our lives, we get emotional strength, right? We get stronger. We become more reliant. We have more resilience. We just are our confidence just grows and expands tremendously every time we do something that we didn't do 10 years ago, we didn't do 5 years, or we didn't believe we could do a year ago. It's life-changing work just to get rid of those gremlins and recognize them and know that, oh my God, they're liars. You are good enough. You're not an imposter. You aren't too big for your britches.
Yes.
You're the real deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that too, you talked on the cycle and patterns. And a lot of times we don't realize that we're in a cycle of patterns or habits or low vibrational self talk. How do we begin to start to clearly identify those patterns?
One of the best ways I have found, but there's multiple ways to combat and conquer your gremlins and your self-doubt. One is to get yourself grounded. One is to realize that, okay, so I kind of am a believer in all people. And I have to say that your listeners, when I say right now, you are good enough, there has to come a time when you draw a line in the sand and say, right, I am. Okay, so why am I feeling this, negativity overcome me? Or why am I in these lower level feelings like anger and disgust and fear and that's all lower level feeling. And how many times in our lives have we been spinning our wheels and lower level feelings, and it just gets so painful we pop out of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, once we get aware of our lower level feelings and that we're in this cycle of frustration, we're in this cycle of energy that doesn't feel good, if we can stop ourselves right there and realize, okay, I'm going to pop out of this because it's so painful. This is bothering me. I've got to, either I'm going to go for a 10-mile hike or walk or run, or I'm going to go get a master's degree, or I'm going to do something I'm going to regret. So when we pop out of this lower level feeling, we want to be doing something healthy for ourselves. And the best way to combat lower level feelings is get conscious of them, what they are, how do they feel in our body. Remember when I said when I could be driving down the road and I'll have this, I want to write this, right? Or I have this idea for a children's book, or I want to do this, and then I'll get this cloud of maybe gloom and doom that hits me, and I'll say, okay, why don't I feel good? Well, again, it's a gremlin, and I make sense with it and flick it away. That's what we're talking about here. It's building your own resilience and knowing, have your starting point, your set point. I'm good enough. Because if you have set points that you're not good enough, what are you going to be in life? Where are you going to reach?
Mm.
Right? You're going to plateau it I'm not good enough. And that's going to be your comfort zone. And you're not going to break that little glass ceiling for yourself. But if you believe in yourself and your set point is I'm good enough, and when I don't feel so great, I'm going to flick those thoughts away and keep going regardless, your life changes.
Yeah. And it can be really easy to stay in that pit, those low feelings of anger, resentment, whatever it may be about your life. But I love that you're just, when you take that step back to just notice, to just be aware, there's a lot of power in that.
Yes, there's life-changing power in that.
Mm.
It is, call it the helicopter view of your life. I mean, step back. These parts of us, I mean, if we really want to get deep, these parts of us, our gremlins, really, but they were once our friend. They were there to keep us safe. They came, I mean, for instance, I had one of my biggest fears was imposter syndrome, and I was always afraid to speak, public speak. And I had quite a few opportunities to speak out in public, and I would literally just experience every kind of negativity I could would come crashing on my head for this. And it is something that we just have to realize that it was there. It was there once for me. I remember I'm sorry, I'm kind of mumbling about this because there's another beginning to it. When I was in third grade, I was in a play and I had the lead in the play. And when they opened the curtain, I literally couldn't talk. All of a sudden, there was people staring at me. There was a crowd, and I was in third grade, and I remembered that. And fast forward years later as an adult, when I would speak in front of 100, 200 people, I would get that same feeling.
That same trauma almost.
Oh, there's a freeze, And so it takes work, but it was that feeling that I have is really trying to protect me from having those feelings of fear. And we have to, we almost have to make friends with our gremlins a little bit, like, okay, I've got it now. Trust me. I don't need you to come and, save me, because basically you're hindering my growth. So I'm going to flick you away a little bit. But, if I had someone I was working with, we might make peace with their gremlins. We make really good friends with their gremlins, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you got to make friends with them.
Exactly. Because if I don't want to go through life being afraid, I can talk. So if I'm 10 feet away off stage and having a conversation with 3 girlfriends and not having any problem speaking, why, if I move 10 feet further into a room and stand in front of a microphone, do I have trouble speaking? Right?
Yeah. Have you, when you're coaching and working with people, have you noticed that a lot of the fears are actually deep-seated in these childhood experiences?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Where our inner child is resilient and always with us.
Yes. Those resilient little children that stay within. Yes.
Just like when I told you, when I started realizing my why, but didn't, I wasn't conscious of it. I was 11 years old. That's a child, right?
Yeah.
When I developed my fear of public speaking, I was probably in third grade, right? So those develop gremlins for me. We have patterns that we start in our childhood. I mean, think about it. If your favorite teacher frowned at you every time you had a math assignment, you might have been great at English, but every time you worked, you were in math class, you were frowned at, or your parents frowned at you, or your best friend wasn't your best friend anymore, and your mind plays all kinds of tricks on you. And it tells you all kinds of stories, and a lot of them aren't true. And it's really interesting. We need to realize that every time we reach for more in life, we're going to be hit with the weaker self as well. And the weaker self we have to talk to and love. We just have to love that part of us, because that part is really trying to keep us safe. And if I'll have talks with that, part of myself, and I say, oh, I've got this. like I do my gremlins, just go away, especially if they're mean.
Yeah.
I just want to flick them away. But if I feel something come up that's trying to protect me, I'll say, oh no, I'm strong enough. I've got this. Thanks.
Something that a podcast guest, Dr. Dawson Church, had told us on a conversation before was that we have more people meditating today than we have ever had, and that number is increasing by the year. And I'm curious to know, as a grandmother to 6,
Hmm.
how do you think that this next generation, do you believe that they're going to be more mindful
Yes.
and more aware of their emotions compared to my generation or your generation?
Absolutely, I do. I don't think there's any doubt at all. We see yoga in some schools. Some progressive schools have children meditating and getting quiet, getting still, and their global awareness is, we've never had this kind of awareness before. I have grandchildren that have been part of a youth civic summit um, that is, teaching them things that we never thought to learn. Never, certainly in my age group and yours. I mean, this is just wonderful. We need to get out of just the survival mode that was instilled in a lot of us, to just get the money, get the education, get the house, get the food. I mean, we have 6 human needs, right? And our 6 human needs are certainty. We have a need for certainty. We have a need for uncertainty. We have a need to feel significant. We have a need for love and connection. And our spiritual needs are growth, a need for growth, and a need for contribution. That's your why, right?
Mm.
What you contribute to the world, and that's when you find your fulfillment. When you align with what you're supposed to do and what your soul wants to do, you start contributing to people in a bigger way. So to answer your question, I think the awareness that is growing globally, we now realize we're connected. We're not just, I mean, some people had pride in their state, right? And then they had pride in their country. And then right now it's like we need to take care of the world,
Yeah.
right? There's a bigger reason to become aware.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, we were all just kind of conditioned. I know a lot of like my conditioning, of no fault of my parents, right? Like, this is just something
Mhm.
that was told to us for a long time, was go to school. After school, you need to get a college education.
Right.
After that, like, you get a job. But I can also say, well, I could have been an entrepreneur without a college education, without my $60,000 in student
Right.
loan
Right.
debt. So like, that could have happened. And I see it with my oldest daughter, who's 11. She's already expressed, she's one of those students who is very scholarly. So when she made this statement that she's not interested in going to college, granted, I know this can change from the time of being 11 and 18. She made that statement. I just asked her, well, what do you want to do? I want to do art. Okay, great. Let's do art now. Like, you don't have to wait. There's not a timeline that we thought we had to follow and be in this autopilot life. You can choose what brings you joy and fulfillment now.
Right. And if you found, Lauren, or she found that her gift in life she wants to express through art, look at the fact that she's aware of that at 11. Now,
Right.
I'm not saying it's her why. I'm not saying anything of the sort, but I'm saying she has it's wonderful that she's living in a home where she can express that, and also express, hey, mom, I may not want to go to college. Now, that can change, and education is fabulous. And I'm a mother of a teacher, and
Yeah.
education that's constant. But I have 3 adult children. Two, my daughters both have higher degrees. My son doesn't. He owns a business,
Mm.
and he went the service route and came out of the service, and he owns a business, and he is a businessman and doing well. And my daughters are doing great. And how you get to where it's individual, right?
Yeah.
And I think your daughter sounds like she's quite, an aware 11-year-old. And I find that my grandchildren are heading in the same way.
Yeah, and it makes me excited too, for for this next generation to just kind of challenge the tradition. And not that there's something wrong with tradition, but there's a mold that needs to be broken that's not very healthy.
Yes, yes. And if we want to name it, I mean, there's a few things we can name it, but just your saying that kind of gave me a hit, and it was like self-love.
Mm.
Uh, I mean, I'm sure your daughter is being taught how to take care of herself. How to remember when at the very beginning of our conversation, I said, if you want to do something to change your life right now, write 3 things in the morning. What can you do for your mind, body, and spirit? And that sounds like how you're raising your daughter.
Yeah.
She's aware. She's thinking. My grandchildren talk about what's going on in the world to a degree that I know I couldn't have held the conversations that they're holding right now and the opinions they have. They are strong. They're powerful little beings. They're little leaders, and I can see that developing, and it just is impressive. And it's it gives you such hope.
Yes, like little light workers just all over right now. They're just shining so much light. And you're so right. Like I see her at 11. I was like, there's no way that was me at 11. I'm probably still playing with Barbies, like.
I think I was always in the direction of going somewhere. I knew that I wanted to go somewhere. I knew that I wanted to reach for more. Don't we all feel that? Isn't there like a little nugget in us that we know we have something to give, and we just have to give ourselves permission to do it?
Yes.
And we just have to go through that little veil, that little cloud that's in our way. And once you get clarity on it and really kind of dig those feet in the earth and get grounded on it, it just starts coming to you. You get very aligned with it and very comfortable being in that place.
And an aligned life is really what we all strive for. And I know that there are probably people listening today who are like, yes, Kathy, I need that clarity. Help me find this clarity. And I know you have so much more to offer as well. So where can our audience go to connect with you further?
Well, thank you, Lauren. My coaching company is called Quintessential Coaching, and they could reach me best with my website, which is quintessential-coaching.com. And
Perfect.
The website, and I can give them a free half hour of coaching or a little session on clarity, and we could go from there.
Wonderful. Well, I will be sure to link that in this week's episode notes as well. Kathy, you are full of so much wisdom and light. Thank you for sharing this space with me and joining me today.
Lauren, thank you so much. I enjoyed it immensely. And I have to say right back at you, you're doing great things. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. How amazing is Kathy? I am excited to hear what resonated most with you in today's episode, so be sure to share your feedback with me on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. You can find me at MindBizLife. And while you're at it, be sure to go ahead and hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or wherever it is that you're tuning in from. That way you don't miss an episode. Your 5-star rating and reviews serve as great feedback to me, but they also help others find this podcast. I'll see you back here on Friday for another episode of Fuel Your Life Friday, but until then, remember, every level of life is an opportunity to grow. Be well, my friend.